I am actually quite excited for today's video. I'm going to be unboxing the new 12.9-inch mini LED iPad Pro. Now, I'm, as you probably know, a big user of the Mac, but only semi-recently have I really gotten into iPads again. I had the original iPad mini when it came out in 2012, and then I didn't really find them all that useful up until recently. So I've been using for the past year or so my 2018 iPad Pro with the Magic Keyboard, and this thing is fantastic. So good, in fact, that this new one has a lot of work to do if it's gonna actually be worth replacing this. So in today's video, we're gonna take a look at the new iPad Pro. Specifically, I bought the cheapest one, but it's still really, really expensive. So, is it worth it? So, you know what's weird about today's video is it feels like a secondary video. Like this was the accessory to the iMac that's behind me, and that was sort of the main event today. However, this iPad was actually more expensive than the iMac that I bought, because I mean, it's $1,100 for this base model 128 gigabyte Wi-Fi only model. However, I also got the Magic Keyboard, which in my mind is not quite necessary, but like pretty close to really getting the most out of this iPad. Granted, you can find less expensive keyboard plus trackpad cases from other manufacturers, but this is the one that works the best, and it's super minimal and clean, and you don't have to charge it up, and it's really great. But it is really expensive. So what is it, $350 plus $1,100 for the base model, the cheapest combination of these two things, and it's $1,450 total. That's more than the base model iMac, that's more than a MacBook Pro, that's more than a MacBook Air by a lot. Is it worth it for not even getting full Mac OS? Well, the biggest thing that I want to see is this screen. So let's crack it open. Oh man, this is gonna be a fun one. I've never owned a 12.9-inch iPad Pro, so this is a new experience for me. I've never witnessed or experienced an iPad that's this massive. So, oh gosh, here we go. Oh my goodness. This thing is gigantic. I mean, I'm used to 13-inch laptops, right? This is a 12.9-inch iPad, so it's technically a smaller screen than a MacBook Pro, but it feels so big relative to being a tablet. Good gravy. Okay, let's see what else we get in the box here. Ooh, fast charging brick. We got our usual pretty light documentation, as well as some non-color matched Apple stickers. Boring. That's pretty much it for the unboxing. Let's tackle the Magic Keyboard, and pretty simple unboxing experience, honestly. Not a lot to it. There's this absolutely massive keyboard case. Oh my goodness. The thing that's weird about this combo is that once you put the keyboard with the iPad, it's bigger and heavier than a MacBook. So, I don't know. That's kind of a tough sell for me. Wow. I want to see this mini LED. Let's go ahead and turn this thing on. This is the most exciting thing. I possibly wouldn't even have bought this iPad if it didn't have mini LED, because I've never seen the technology in action. I mean, heck, the largest OLED display that I've ever seen is my iPhone 12 Pro Max. I don't have anything bigger than that that's OLED. So this is probably the best quality display that I'll be seeing for a long time. Doing Face ID on something this big is kind of funky. Man, I wish that you could do that on a Mac. Huh? Oop, hello. It's a really nice combination though. I will admit, Yes, the Magic Keyboard is super expensive, but my goodness, does it look good. I don't know. I've really enjoyed the 11-inch iPad Pro because it's smaller than a laptop, and it feels more portable, even though, you know, it's not the lightest thing, it's not the thinnest thing once you put it in the case, but it feels portable, it feels like something that you can chuck in a bag. It's a very interesting case. The iPad is such an interesting device now, and I'm sure I'm gonna make a video where I try to switch to it and replace my M1 MacBook Pro with the M1 iPad Pro. I'm very curious to see how that actually works out. $1,450. That's a lot for a starting price, basically, with the keyboard. So, does it deliver? Well, let's find out. So, the big thing for me when it comes to the debate between a MacBook and an iPad isn't necessarily what you can and can't do with it, but the ways that you can do it. Because a MacBook and an iPad can accomplish a lot of the same tasks in different ways. For example, you could very easily read news on a MacBook by scrolling through a web browser, but on the iPad, you have the additional capability of removing the screen from its mount and holding it like a newspaper and using that while you're sitting on a hammock or something. Great, now I really want a hammock. You could make that argument over pretty much anything that you would want to do on either of these devices, and there are some tasks that each of them is uniquely suited to. For example, if you're a Final Cut Pro user such as myself, the iPad is basically off limits because, at least as of the time I'm filming this video, there is no Final Cut Pro for the iPad, and even if there were, maybe it's not something that you would find usable. I'm sure it would have to be adapted to this form factor, and maybe you just won't like it. So that's perfectly fair. And the inverse might be true if you're an illustrator, for example. You might not want to plug a Wacom tablet into your MacBook Pro when you could just buy an iPad with a mini LED display and plenty of refresh rate and have an absolutely gorgeous canvas to work on. So, a lot of the tasks they can both do, some of the tasks either one can do, but it's kind of hard to pick out and say one is objectively better. It basically depends on what you need it for. And that's kind of Apple's goal, isn't it? Like, do you think Apple wants you to sell your MacBook Pro and buy an iPad instead? No, they want you to buy an iPad in addition. And that's why these two will never compete on an exactly equal playing field. It would completely cannibalize Apple's entire system. But that being said, this new iPad Pro gives us a really, really good look into the future. Mini LED, especially 120 Hertz Mini LED, is jaw-dropping. I watched a video on YouTube in HDR and I was flabbergasted. I was literally flabbergasted. I was looking at that video and I said, oh my God. It looks so freaking good. I cannot wait for Mini LED to make it out of this weird phase that it's in right now where production is very, very difficult and to start expanding to the rest of the iPad and Mac lineup. Could you imagine a 32-inch iMac Pro with a Mini LED Super Retina, Liquid Retina XDR, whatever they call it, display? That would be so freaking good. I would die. But in the here and now, I've got two different comparisons here, and basically my initial thoughts are, it's not any more portable than a 13-inch MacBook Pro. In fact, it's heavier than a 13-inch MacBook Pro. So you're not going with the iPad for portability, and you're certainly not going with it for OS features because Mac OS, in my opinion, is objectively a more rounded operating system. It's a more open operating system, and it just has a little bit more freedom and a little bit more options for you. However, the iPad Pro does have some pretty incredible benefits to it. The big one is that display. Obviously, it's just amazing, but also the cameras are surprisingly good. Now, I know you're not going to be running around taking photos of stuff with your 13-inch iPad. However, they're very good. I may or may not have had a little bit too much fun playing with the cameras on the iPad. I'm quite tired I've been working since about 8 a.m. and it's currently nearly 8 p.m. So yeah, I may have gone a bit overboard. But buried amongst all of that silliness, there are some key takeaways. Number one, the ultra-wide camera on the front and back is really useful. You can basically hold the thing like right here and get your full upper body in the frame, which is pretty cool. I don't know necessarily why you would need that, but you have that option. It's cool to be able to use the full ultra-wide on the front-facing camera, and it also works pretty well in center stage. As you saw with me, running around like an idiot, it definitely was able to track me, even though it was perhaps a little bit delayed. It was nice to have a cameraman. Maybe I should just use this to film all my videos. So what I think I'm gonna do is, for the next video with the iPad Pro, I'm gonna ditch the M1 MacBook Pro, and I'm gonna go for the iPad Pro only for a week or so. And I'm gonna see if it's better, worse, the same. I've been on the 11-inch for about a year now, and this is a purely secondary device for me. It's not something that I use for primary workloads, but I have been using it a lot. So maybe this iPad with the new screen and the M1 chip, maybe this will bridge that gap. This will make me an iPad-only person. Only time will tell, and if you want to find out what time tells, you should probably get subscribed. So there we go. I'm gonna go watch a movie on this because it's late and I'm sleepy. All right, see you guys in the next video.